To begin this history of Roman Britain, we need to travel back to the 1st century BC, when the Roman Empire was enjoying its peak strength and confidence. This era marked the end of the Roman Republic, a time when Rome still functioned as a form of democracy. While authority primarily rested with the wealthy and landowning classes, Rome did conduct elections, and the Senate's power served as a check on the ruler's might. Rome had already expanded its empire across vast territories in Europe, Greece, Turkey, and along the North African coast. Despite its colossal size and rapid growth, the rugged chalk cliffs of the British Isles remained the frontier of the Roman world, an enigmatic and intimidating land to the Romans. Some, like the historian Plutarch, even speculated that Britain might be more myth than reality. Disputes arose debating whether Britain was a genuine place or a fabricated tale. Despite the narrow 30-kilometre stretch separating mainland Europe from Britain, the North Sea and North Atlantic exposed the crossing to harsh, unpredictable weather conditions. The Roman historian Ammianus Marcellinus vividly described the treacherous nature of the sea passage, with its terrifying surges swiftly followed by calm seas as flat as a plain. By the mid-1st century BC, many had attempted the perilous journey to Britain, with several generals and emperors facing defeat. Julius Caesar stands out for his renowned invasions of Britain in 55 BC and 54 BC, where Roman efforts were largely mired in the marshes of Kent and the Thames Valley. Caesar's subsequent consolidation of power in Rome and the eventual transition to a dictatorship marked a new era. His successor, Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor, envisioned 3 failed invasion attempts of Britain. In successive generations, Emperor Caligula, known for his erratic behavior, prepared a massive invasion force near Normandy, set on claiming Britain for Rome. This significant expedition, involving 200,000 soldiers, might have succeeded had it not been for Caligula's infamy as a mad ruler. On a sudden whim, it is said that Emperor Caligula abruptly called off the British invasion and directed his troops to collect seashells along the beaches of Normandy instead. To the Romans, Britain remained an elusive and coveted prize, a mysterious land inhabited by wild and unpredictable barbarians. Upon his return from the unsuccessful campaigns, Julius Caesar penned accounts revealing his palpable discomfort with the British populace. He described most Britons as foregoing agriculture, sustaining themselves on milk and meat while donning hides as attire. Woad dye gave them a bluish hue, imparting a fearsome appearance in battle. Sporting long hair and shaving their bodies except for their heads and upper lips further added to their distinct image. Eventually, it was Emperor Claudius who assimilated this untamed and perilous land into the Roman Empire. Deploying 4 legions, totaling 20,000 men, he landed on the British coast while prudently staying back on the continent, likely mindful of the setbacks faced by his predecessors. Claudius would have attentively awaited each incoming report as his troops navigated through Kent's chalky terrains and valleys, marching onward to the river estuaries of the Thames. There, a formidable British fighting force stood ready to confront them. The ensuing battle extended over 2 days, an unusually protracted engagement during an era typified by short, brutal clashes. Following vigorous resistance, the British warriors retreated to the banks of the River Thames. The Romans pursued them, traversing the Essex marshes by wading and swimming, skillfully erecting bridges across the swampy terrain through their engineering prowess. Ultimately, after a final bloody clash, British opposition was decisively quelled. It was only when victory appeared imminent that Emperor Claudius himself graced British shores. Notably, he presented a fearsome emblem of Roman might, a domesticated war elephant transported from Africa, a sobering sight for the Britons witnessing the arrival of their conquerors. The thunderous thuds of its footsteps and the clanking of its immense chains likely shattered any lingering hopes of successful resistance. From that point onward, Roman forces efficiently swept across the land, imposing dominance as they advanced into Wales and the British Midlands, subjugating tribes along their relentless path. Upon approaching the rugged terrains of Caledonia, the ancient name for modern-day Scotland, the Romans encountered formidable resistance. These lands were controlled by fierce confederations of tribes, including potent warrior groups such as the Picts and the Maetae. Roman historian Cassius Dio portrayed these people with explicit disdain, labeling them as inhabitants of harsh, waterless mountains and desolate, marshy plains devoid of fortified walls, cities, or cultivated fields. The tribes dwelled in tents, unclad and barefoot, with a keen penchant for looting and pillaging. The Picts' true name remains a mystery due to the scant linguistics left behind. The Romans coined the term Picts, deriving from the same root as the English word picture, signifying painted, in allusion to the striking war paint they adorned during battle. Today, we recognize them through the captivating ceremonial standing stones scattered across Scotland, adorned with intricate patterns and spirals. Regardless of the limited historical insights we have, it's evident that these tribal fighters defended their territories with relentless fury, successfully thwarting further Roman advancement. The Picts, well versed in their terrain, employed what we might now identify as guerrilla tactics. Acknowledging their resilient opposition, the Romans opted to halt their progress, designating the border with Caledonia as the utmost extent of their empire. Constructing forts along a protruding cliff spanning the nation's width, composed of an igneous dolerite shelf, served as a natural barrier demarcating Roman territories from the Pictish domains. A rare discovery, a writing tablet recovered from a refuse heap within one of these forts, dated to 92 AD, reflects Roman exasperation with ongoing skirmishes. The tablet references the challenging encounters with the unclothed Britons, noting the plentiful cavalry, their unconventional armaments, and the unfamiliar term Britonculae, unique to this source, highlighting the intricate dynamics of the conflict between the Romans and the Picts. The term Britonculae, essentially translating to nasty little Britons, offers insight into the Roman perspective towards their newfound subjects. In 120 AD, Emperor Hadrian's journey to Britain unveiled ongoing rebellions and raids plaguing Roman troops. Nonetheless, he identified the strategic advantage presented by the volcanic rock ridge on which they were encamped. Commanding for a reinforced fortification, Hadrian ordered the erection of what would evolve into the world's largest Roman structure, a formidable 135-kilometer wall stretching coast to coast, famously known as Hadrian's Wall. The Romans fortified this barrier with infantry and cavalry garrisons stationed in a series of forts spanning its length. However, Roman ambition to expand beyond this border persisted, resulting in unsuccessful efforts to push further north into Caledonia. Erecting another defensive structure, the Antonine Wall, 160 kilometers north from Hadrian's Wall, at the narrowest point in the British Isles, spanning 63 kilometers coast to coast, proved futile. Caledonia's untamable character rendered the Antonine Wall futile as the Romans abandoned it repeatedly, allowing its stones to crumble into the Scottish moorlands. Amidst these endeavours, Hadrian's Wall endured. Rome dispatched scouting parties between the two barriers, engaging in negotiations for truces, hostage exchanges, and trade transactions. The discovery of vast quantities of Roman coins north of Hadrian's Wall suggests that Rome possibly paid the Picts for maintaining peace by tempering their attacks. Meanwhile, in the region south of this serpentine of stone, Roman Britain settled into a precarious peace marred by occasional uprisings, notably the revolt led by the warrior queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe just 17 years post the southern Britain conquest. Rome quashed this insurrection with great severity, effectively dismantling the remaining organized resistance. The province of Britannia, however, never reached complete pacification. Evoking the adage that Rome wasn't built in a day, the rapid transformation of Roman regional hubs like London and Colchester into bustling cities mirrors the swift development spurred by Roman influence. Comparing the growth of these cities to the contemporary urban expansion of places like Singapore or Dubai provides a glimpse into London's evolution in the decades post the Roman arrival. The transformation of a modest, marshy fishing village into a grand metropolis within the span of a few decades marked the Roman imprint on Britain. Despite the vibrant pantheon of gods, Rome's true religion intertwined with urbanism, a reverence for city life. Constructing replicas of Rome in every city they established, the Romans in London erected lavish structures like ornate forums, colossal theatres, and grand public edifices adorned with marble facades and tiled roofs, a novelty for the Britons. A novel elite comprising Roman governors, bureaucrats, and dignitaries converged, constructing opulent villas adorned with mosaics, baths, and even underfloor heating across the countryside. Every city evolved into another pivotal nexus in the network of roads facilitating the transport of imperial goods. Urban Britons now relished a profusion of exotic luxuries, an array of incenses, perfumes, wine-filled amphora, alluring red-gloss pottery from Gaul, olive oil from Spain, and spices from as far as India. In return, Britain supplied the Roman realm with precious metals like gold, silver, lead, and iron, with Cornwall and Devon emerging as key tin sources essential for bronze production in the ancient world. Despite these exchanges, Britannia was a consistently high-priced acquisition. Records indicate a greater outpouring of resources into the island than extraction, hinting at the empire's fading investment. Britain posed a continual challenge as a hotbed of rebellious sentiments, with native Britons residing in timber-turf villages or walled roundhouses, upholding tribal allegiances over fealty to Roman authorities. In tandem, throughout Britain, fortified green zones materialized, serving as walled precincts where foreign overseers enforced the imperial societal framework. Tomb inscriptions unearthed in York document imperial functionaries hailing from regions as distant as Africa, France, Sardinia, and Greece. A rotating array of governors passed through, holding office for brief periods, none of whom were native to Britain. Unlike in other Roman colonies like Gaul, attempts to involve indigenous populations in the imperial agenda seemingly faltered in Britain. While some Britons might have reaped the material riches of Roman dominion, a palpable sense of alienation from the shared destiny binding the empire prevailed. In this ambience, the British countryside often teetered on the brink of discord, vulnerable to internal uprisings, Pictish and Maeotian incursions along the fortified northern borders, as well as a flourishing piracy trade catalyzed by the bustling European maritime commerce. These multifaceted pressures, manifesting in the first century of Roman governance in Britain, eventually converged to test the empire's foothold from all sides, akin to impending crushing forces on a tin can. Coin hoards serve as vital indicators for tracking cycles of peace and conflict in the ancient world. Imagining life in antiquity, individuals stored their wealth securely during prosperous times, be it silver coins or gold jewelry in family vaults, homes, or early forms of banks. However, in moments of discord or insecurity, the impulse to bury valuables arose, a preemptive measure or a panicked response triggered by emerging threats, signified by distant plumes of black smoke. Amidst mild unrest, people often returned to retrieve these caches once calm was restored. Yet, in periods of sustained turmoil, the buried coins could remain abandoned, their stamped dates and emperors symbolizing the lost ownership. This practice of hoarding offers a valuable insight for archaeologists dissecting historical unrest. Transitioning to Roman Britain, a surge in coin hoard burials heralded a turbulent era, coinciding with the wane of the 2nd century post the Roman Republic's dissolution. Over nearly 2 centuries of expansion, known as the Pax Romana or Roman peace, Rome encountered relative calm within its borders, alongside persistent conflicts at its peripheries. However, the tranquility within the Roman Empire began fracturing as the year 200 approached. The onset of the dreaded plague, imported from the east by campaigning soldiers, unleashed havoc within Rome, claiming 2,000 lives daily at its pinnacle. The contagion ravaged the imperial army, resulting in an estimated 5 million deaths across Europe. Simultaneously, political turmoil festered following the absolutist reign of Roman emperors post-Julius Caesar and Augustus. The emperor wielded supreme power as a dictator, eclipsing the influence of the Senate and judicial system, devoid of any representation of popular sentiment. The confluence of plague, famine, and burgeoning civil strife, spurred by rival contentions for imperial dominance, set Europe ablaze with civil wars. Often resonating most fervently in Britannia, the empire's extremity and austere province, the generals stationed in these rugged frontiers were among the first to discern the ominous drums of war. This historical juncture marked a perpetual shift from the tranquil reverberations of the Pax Romana towards the turbulent thresholds of uncertainty and power struggles that would define the forthcoming years. The paradoxical nature of Roman Britain becomes apparent when observing the immense challenges it faced externally and internally, necessitating a substantial military presence for its defense. The land demanded a formidable army, with as many as 40,000 troops at its pinnacle, constituting roughly an eighth of the entire imperial army, an illustration of the region's strategic significance. Hence, anyone entrusted with the leadership of Britannia's defense became one of the most influential figures within the empire, exemplifying a pivotal but fraught responsibility that would ultimately unravel the fate of Roman Britain. The cascade towards the fall of Roman Britain unfolds through the narrative of Claudius Albinus, a significant figure encapsulating what can be termed the British mistake within the empire's annals. Hailing from Tunisia and born to modest origins, Albinus embodied a striking contrast as an African general known by the surname Albinus, indicative of his exceptional pallor at birth. His father's correspondence vividly described the peculiar phenomenon of his son's strikingly white complexion, a feature that nevertheless did not impede his progress in life. Ascending the ranks of the Roman military through sheer skill, Albinus eventually assumed the position of governor in Britannia, outlasting many of his predecessors. The Historia Augusta provides a detailed portrayal of his physical attributes: tall, with disheveled curly hair, a broad forehead, and remarkably fair skin. Noteworthy was his feminine-toned, almost eunuch-like voice. Albinus seemed adept in his gubernatorial duties, potentially poised for a successful career within Roman society, navigating a trajectory of advancement. However, fate took a tumultuous turn as pivotal events unfolded across the vast expanse of the Western Roman Empire, set off by the demise of the despotic Emperor Commodus in the year 192 AD. Commodus's death, sans a clear heir, triggered a maelstrom of contention among multiple claimants, plunging the empire yet again into a vortex of uncertainty and societal disarray, foreshadowing future tumultuous times in a realm fraught with ambition, chaos, and shifting allegiances. The tumultuous period post-Commodus's demise plunged the Roman Empire into a harrowing epoch characterized by power struggles and violent upheavals, immortalized in the poignant lament of Cassius Dio as the realm transitioned from a golden age to one marred by iron and rust. The era, famously known as the Year of the Five Emperors, witnessed a riveting saga of contention among 5 imperial aspirants, leading to widespread bloodshed, rampant destruction, and the incineration of cities, reducing legions and populations alike until only 2 formidable contenders remained in the fray. Claudius Albinus, the distinguished governor stationed in Britain, found himself in a formidable yet precarious position as one of the favoured claimants by the Roman Senate, alongside the ruthless Emperor Septimius Severus, who held sway in Rome. In a bid for ascendancy, Albinus delivered a resolute address to his British legions, striking a chord as he pledged to revive the traditional authority of the Roman Senate, an audacious stance that resonated profoundly amid his supporters who unequivocally pledged allegiance to him, overtly defying the reigning emperor. Emboldened by the unwavering loyalty of his troops and encouraged by the Senate's backing, Albinus initiated a bold march towards Rome with an unwavering resolve. Mobilizing all available forces, he summoned 3 legions from Britain, every soldier at his disposal, and set sail for the Italian mainland in 195 AD, enshrined with a sense of destiny and martyrdom, instigating a painstakingly protracted confrontation with the imperial forces. Engaged in the brutal Battle of Lugdunum that persisted over 2 grueling days, Albinus initially held the upper hand, commanding a formidable following and fostering an illusion of eventual triumph. However, the swift turn of events, marked by wavering allegiance among his ranks and imminent defeat, confronted him with the harsh reality that all had been lost. In a poignant denouement, Albinus, bereft of recourse, chose a tragic end, thrusting a dagger through his own heart, while Severus, in his unyielding triumph, exhibited ruthless reprisal, desecrating Albinus's remains, decapitating his kin, and instigating purges to reassert imperial dominance. The resounding message was clear. The absolute supremacy of the ruler endured, quelling dissent and orchestrating a submissive return of the Senate to the emperor's fold, while Britannia, left bereft and defenseless amid Albinus's ill-fated quest for power, descended into turmoil and lawlessness, echoing the somber saga of the fallen governor's ambition and ultimate demise. During the period following the demise of Claudius Albinus and the subsequent upheavals in Britannia, a profound economic shift resonated through the region due to the sudden absence of a significant Roman military presence. The economy had been intricately intertwined with the provisioning and maintenance required for the Roman army, food supplies, weapon forging, leather repair services, among others, creating a robust economic ecosystem that now lay in shambles. The ripple effects were far-reaching, with widespread unemployment triggering local insurrections and emboldening external forces to exploit the vulnerability of the Britannic territory. Barbarian incursions intensified as Picts from Scotland, Scotti from Ireland, and Saxons from the seas converged to pillage the land left defenceless by Albinus's ill-fated expedition to Rome. In the ensuing chaos, Roman intervention eventually circled back to reclaim control. But even a decade later, in 207 AD, lingering apprehensions prevailed among Roman officials regarding the precarious state of affairs in Britannia, marked by relentless barbarian marauding and pervasive unrest. The crux of what is termed the British mistake unravelled through the paradoxical dilemma that any substantial occupying force in Britannia posed an inherent threat. The allure of commanding sizable forces within the region invariably enticed ambitious governors to forsake their defensive duties in Britannia for a bid at imperial power in Rome, a recurring pattern that rendered the province vulnerable to external onslaughts and internal turmoil. In the wake of Albinus's demise and Severus's ascension, the newfound emperor sought to fortify Roman control over Britannia by venturing north to repel northern incursions, albeit with limited success. Severus's efforts to consolidate power in the region, including the division of Britannia into two provinces, aimed to curb the authority of individual governors, but failed to mark a lasting change. The pervasive unrest continued, fueled by subsequent generations of ambitious leaders succumbing to the siren call of Rome, abandoning Britannia to uncertain fates time and again. As the fabric of Roman rule gradually frayed across Western Europe in the tumultuous era of military anarchy, Britannia remained a fertile ground for discontent and insurrection. Episodes like Postumus's insurrection, which cleaved Britannia and Gaul from the empire for a decade in 260 AD, underscored the enduring challenges faced by Roman authorities, as shifting allegiances, internal strife, and external pressures threatened to unravel the imperial grip over the once conquered territories. Amid the tumultuous events that unfolded in Roman Britain, the year 286 AD bore witness to the meteoric rise and fall of Carausius, an unconventional figure who ascended to power as Emperor of Britain, commanding authority for 7 years before meeting his demise. This turbulent period of Britannia's history, marred by intermittent usurpations and fleeting reigns, also showcased instances of resilience and triumph, notably exemplified by Emperor Constantine the Great in 306 AD. With his ascension in York, Constantine embarked on a transformative journey that culminated in his unification of the Eastern and Western Roman empires, following years of relentless civil strife and military campaigns. This era marked a pivotal turning point for Rome as emperors assumed the mantle of military strongmen, exacerbating internal conflicts while concentrating vast wealth into the hands of a privileged elite. Concurrently, external threats grew in potency and sophistication, exploiting Rome's vulnerabilities and reshaping the geopolitical landscape as the empire stood precariously poised on the brink of significant upheaval. The onset of the 4th century heralded darker times for Roman Britain. epitomized by the ominous Great Barbarian Conspiracy that unfolded in 367 AD, a defining moment that underscored the empire's waning authority and escalating challenges. Imagining the desolate winter setting at Hadrian's Wall evokes a stark image of Roman soldiers weathering brutal conditions against the relentless onslaught of fierce northern tribes. In an unprecedented act of defiance, disillusionment, or possibly manipulation, the weary defenders of the empire's northern bulwark defected, permitting a cataclysmic breach as marauding Picts unleashed havoc upon the region, pillaging settlements and instigating widespread devastation. In a startling synchrony of assaults, a conglomerate of tribes, including the Atrebates, Scotti, Saxons, and Franks, orchestrated a coordinated offensive, defying conventional raiding patterns and posing an existential threat to Roman interests in Britain and Gaul. The strategic coordination of these incursions signaled a new chapter in barbarian tactics, underscoring the evolving nature of external forces and their heightened resolve to challenge Rome's fading dominion over its territories. The cataclysmic events of 367 AD reverberated across Roman Britain as a stark testament to the empire's dwindling hegemony and the encroaching perils posed by resurgent barbarian alliances. The Great Barbarian Conspiracy stands as a poignant fulcrum that encapsulates the ebb of Roman power, the emboldening of external adversaries, and the inexorable march towards the twilight of imperial grandeur in a world increasingly defined by chaos and uncertainty. The upheaval and devastation wrought by the Great Barbarian Conspiracy plunged Roman Britain into a state of disarray and chaos, with marauding tribes overwhelming Roman defences, sacking towns, and instigating widespread pillaging and violence. The historian Ammianus Marcellinus vividly portrays a landscape of anarchy and despair, with generals falling, territories ravaged, and populations wrought with terror and disarray. The barbarian raids, orchestrated by the Atrebates, Scotti, Franks, and Saxons, inflicted catastrophic harm on British territories, inciting terror and overwhelming Roman authorities. An air of lawlessness pervaded the region for 2 tumultuous years, until Rome dispatched its eminent commander, Flavius Theodosius, to confront and disband the marauding hordes. Through strategic warfare and diplomatic amnesty, Theodosius gradually restored order, although the scars of the conspiracy left an indelible mark on the Roman psyche and the empire's ability to safeguard its domains. The coordinated and ruthless nature of the barbarian assaults paralleled modern-day acts of terror like the September 11th attacks, rattling the foundations of Roman authority and sowing seeds of doubt and vulnerability throughout the empire. Rome's diminishing confidence in the face of external threats contributed to the erosion of its once unchallenged dominance, marking a turning point in the empire's trajectory. The erosion of Roman Britain's economic vitality, exacerbated by decades of decline, civil strife, and external incursions, further precipitated the region's downfall. Disrupted trade routes, diminished industrial output, and societal decay underscored a landscape marred by neglect and decline, as symbolized by the stagnation of infrastructure and cultural institutions like sewers and public baths. Amidst this backdrop of decline and upheaval, the emergence of Magnus Maximus, a charismatic yet impulsive general, heralded a pivotal moment in British history. Like a recurring theme in history, Maximus's ambition and military prowess mirrored past figures such as Albinus, setting the stage for a dramatic denouement as Roman Britain stood at the precipice of disintegration. As the 4th century unfurled its final act, echoing the cyclical rhythms of history, Maximus's aspirations and actions bore echoes of his predecessors, inviting parallels with the ill-fated expeditions that had unfolded in earlier eras. Maximus's military pedigree, distinguished campaigns, and strategic acumen positioned him as a pivotal figure whose decisions and ambitions would inexorably steer Britannia towards its fateful destiny in the turbid waters of history, where eddies of change and echoes of the past converged in a swirling dance of echoes and consequences. Maximus's journey intertwined with pivotal events in Roman history, marked by his participation in Flavius Theodosius's campaign to restore order after the Great Barbarian Conspiracy. His tenure as governor of Britain in 380 AD catapulted him into the fray of Britannia's tumultuous politics, where he engraved his imprint by fiercely repelling Pictish and Scots incursions that breached Hadrian's Wall, possibly emboldened by Rome's recent vulnerabilities. Maximus's devout Christian faith, amid a time of religious suppression, added a layer of complexity to his character and motivations, setting the stage for a transformative chapter in his life. Moreover, Maximus's building of a grand church in London following a triumphant military victory underscored his religious fervour and his desire to intertwine his faith with his governance, further cementing his legacy as a multifaceted leader with grand aspirations beyond mundane provincial duties. Meanwhile, the reign of Emperor Gratian cast a captivating light on the quirks and eccentricities of Roman rulers, notably his predilection for the company of Scythian archers and his emulation of their culture. However, Gratian's flamboyant persona suddenly paled in the wake of Emperor Valens's disastrous defeat at the hands of Gothic rebels, a cataclysmic event that reverberated throughout the empire, shattering Roman confidence and emboldening barbarian incursions beyond the Danube. The seismic impact of Valens's defeat propelled Rome into a state of disarray, where the veneer of security crumbled under the shadow of barbarian armies wreaking havoc across eastern territories. Gratian's exotic preferences and unconventional attire as a Scythian warrior now clashed starkly with the empire's tumultuous reality, casting the emperor in a harsher light as internal dissent simmered and challenges to the throne emerged on the imperial stage. As the empire grappled with internal schisms and external threats, narratives of power, ambition, and religious fervour converged in a dramatic crescendo, weaving a tapestry of intrigue and uncertainty that would ultimately shape the fates of emperors, generals, and the destiny of the Roman world. Maximus, amidst this grand theatre of politics and conflict, would soon step into the limelight, poised on the brink of destiny, with a future fraught with both promise and peril. Magnus Maximus, the fervent and ambitious leader, reminiscent of his predecessor Albinus, embarked on a daring quest to march on Rome in 383 AD, rallying his extensive army in Britannia and setting sail for Gaul. As history unfolded its cyclical narrative, Maximus's zeal for power mirrored the unchecked ambition that had gripped those before him, blinding him to the weight of precedent and the ghosts of failed imperial conquests that haunted the annals of Roman history. The voyage to the continent, where Maximus was poised to seize the mantle of empire, laid bare the hubris and recklessness that often accompany the pursuit of unchecked power. Despite the omens of the past and the unheeded warnings that lingered in the air like spectres, Maximus's singular focus on capturing the imperial purple overshadowed all rational counsel, propelling him towards a destiny fraught with uncertainty and peril. Upon confronting Emperor Gratian's forces outside Paris, Maximus's audacious bid for power swiftly materialized into a tenuous victory, as Gratian met his demise and Maximus ascended to the imperial throne. However, the fleeting triumph brought with it a cloud of turmoil and dissent, as the very anarchy and discord Maximus left in Britannia now sowed the seeds of his own downfall. Just like Albinus, Maximus's neglect of his homeland, his abandonment of Britannia's defences, unravelled the stability that once shrouded his core supporters. Raiders and marauders, drawn like vultures to the chaos that pervaded the vulnerable provinces, wrought havoc and devastation along the coasts and northern towns, casting a shadow of desolation over the legacy of a once promising empire. In the relentless cycle of rise and fall, conquest and collapse, the tale of Magnus Maximus stands as a cautionary testament to the impermanence of power, the folly of unchecked ambition, and the enduring echoes of history that reverberate through the ages, reminding us that even the mightiest rulers are but fleeting figures in the grand tapestry of time. The aftermath of Magnus Maximus's departure from Britain cast a long, dark shadow over the land, triggering a cascading series of events that plunged the realm into chaos and despair. The economic depletion wrought by his brutal taxation policies and the decimation of the land's garrison instigated a spiraling downturn, laced with rebellion and unrest that swept through the countryside like wildfire, consuming all in its path. The year 383 AD marked a definitive turning point in the annals of British history, etched in the finality of Roman coinage and archaeological traces that abruptly ceased to exist in Wales and the northern Pennine Hills, symbolizing the culmination of Roman authority in Britain. St. Gildas, the 6th century British cleric, immortalized this tumultuous era in his scathing treatise, vividly capturing the desolation and ruin that befell Britain post-Maximus's ill-fated campaign. The exodus of Britain's soldiery with Maximus catalyzed a catastrophic domino effect, leaving the land vulnerable to marauding tribes from the north, the Scots and Picts, who descended upon the defenseless populace like ravenous predators, ravaging the land and plunging the once thriving economy into ruin. The absence of nails sealing coffins, the loss of hobnails on boots, the decline of pottery craftsmanship, and the gradual abandonment of urban suburbs crystallized the profound socio-economic collapse that gripped Britain in its icy embrace. The tragic legacy of Maximus's folly found an unenviable successor in Constantine, an obscure soldier who replicated his predecessor's mistakes with eerie precision. Constantine's ill-fated bid for power catapulted Britain into a bloody power struggle, igniting a maelstrom of violence and upheaval that tore the realm asunder, culminating in his ill-fated expedition to the continent and the subsequent demise of Roman influence in Britain. The ignominious reign of Constantine, buoyed by a fleeting semblance of authority granted by Emperor Honorius, unraveled in the face of internal strife and external pressures, leading to his demise and the definitive end of Roman presence in Britain in 410 AD. Honorius's historic pronouncement, urging the British to fend for themselves amidst the tumult of collapsing imperial authority, marked the conclusion of an era and the onset of a new chapter, as the spectre of Roman decline loomed ominously over the remnants of a once mighty empire, teetering on the brink of dissolution. The withdrawal of the remaining soldiers and administrators marked a seismic shift in the trajectory of Britain, as the demise of Roman authority ushered in a turbulent era of transition and upheaval. While the cessation of tax collection initially provided some respite to the beleaguered populace, the abrupt halt in financial support for city administrators and local soldiers precipitated a power vacuum rapidly filled by emergent warlords and chieftains vying for dominance amidst the crumbling vestiges of Roman civilization. These nascent rulers capitalized on local resources and levied tributes from the populace to fund their burgeoning fiefdoms, laying the groundwork for the embryonic medieval society that would emerge in the wake of Roman retreat. The influx of mercenary armies from continental Europe, comprising Jutes, Angles, and Saxons, catalyzed the establishment of the first Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, forging a cultural amalgam born of the intermingling of disparate traditions and identities. The erasure of Latin as a lingua franca, the abandonment of writing, and the fading of Roman cultural markers from the collective memory underscored the profound societal transformation unfolding in Britain post-Roman withdrawal. As the grandeur of Roman cities waned and opulent villas succumbed to neglect and decay, the landscape bore witness to a slow but inexorable decline, with once elegant estates giving way to nature's reclamation and the inexorable march of time. The poignant imagery of ruined villas, overrun by encroaching foliage, and dilapidated edifices haunted by spectres of bygone eras, epitomized the poignant elegy of a civilization in decline. The abandonment of Hadrian's Wall, symbolizing the relinquishment of imperial control and the dissolution of the border's defenses, unleashed a wave of scavenging, as local communities repurposed its stones to construct their own dwellings, intertwining Roman architectural remnants with the fabric of nascent medieval structures across the region. The appropriation of Roman fortifications by tribal chieftains as private strongholds, the repurposing of Roman artifacts in everyday life, and the gradual transformation of urban centers into ghostly husks of their former selves, painted a vivid tableau of societal upheaval and cultural metamorphosis. As London languished in neglect and Tower Hill's grand church of Magnus Maximus succumbed to flames, the cityscape bore witness to a poignant testament to the impermanence of empires and the ever-turning wheel of history, where the echoes of the past reverberated in the ruins of a bygone era. The dismantling and quarrying of London's Roman Forum and other architectural marvels marked a pronounced shift in the city's fate, as the grandeur of its civic structures gave way to opportunistic scavenging and the inexorable encroachment of nature. As urban decay progressed, the cityscape gradually metamorphosed into a desolate tableau of ruins, with London's once vibrant population dispersing to simpler rural lifestyles, eschewing the decaying metropolis for timber longhouses and round dwellings nestled amidst pastoral tranquility. The flourishing of hill forts abandoned by pre-Roman Britons and the repurposing of looted Roman artifacts spoke to a rekindling of ancient ways, intertwined with the exigencies of a post-imperial landscape. Amidst the decay, remnants of elite enclaves clung to vestiges of Roman luxury, perpetuating a facade of opulence in a city inexorably succumbing to the tides of time. The haunting imagery of London's final days, characterized by rampant overgrowth and the ominous silence of urban desolation, crystallized the inexorable decline of a once thriving metropolis. As the echoes of an erstwhile era faded into oblivion, London metamorphosed into a spectral husk, gradually swallowed by marshes and mud, its legacy poised on the precipice of vanishing beneath the relentless march of entropy. The poignant narrative of scavengers scavenging the remnants of a fallen city, symbolized by artifacts like the Billingsgate brooch, underscored the poignant interplay between human desperation and the inexorable decay of once majestic edifices. The juxtaposition of cyclical renewal and irreversible decay wove a melancholic elegy for a lost age, immortalized in the spectral ruins of a bygone epoch that lingered as poignant relics of a vanished world. The prevailing sense of desolation and foreboding that permeated Britain's abandoned cities evoked an era crippled by the weight of history, where the vestiges of former grandeur stood as haunting monuments to a lost epoch. The intrusion of Saxon settlers, wary of the perceived spectral and malevolent aura of ruined Roman cities, further encapsulated the profound cultural and psychological shifts enfolding the landscape. In the remnants of Rome's legacy lie the ghosts of an age of faded glory, where the vestiges of bygone civilizations intertwine with the primal fears and superstitions of a populace fragmented by loss and upheaval. The remnants of monumental temples and grand public edifices cast a long shadow over a land grappling with the vestiges of empire, immortalizing the ghosts of a vanished race amidst the encroaching embrace of nature and the march of time. As the ruins of ancient cities crumbled and the whispers of a lost era mingled with the winds of change, Britain stood at a crossroads of history, teetering on the brink of oblivion, yet poised for an unforeseen resurgence. For in the quiet decay of abandoned settlements and the haunting echoes of forsaken grandeur lay the seeds of a future empire, dormant yet pregnant with the promise of greatness. 1,000 years hence, the sun would never set on a realm unrivaled in dominion, bearing witness to Britain's ascendant glory as the world's foremost imperial power. The parallels between the legacy of Rome's rise and fall and Britain's indomitable zenith would not be lost to the annals of history, underscoring a potent lesson echoing across the corridors of time. From the echoes of antiquity emerged a subtle refrain. The impermanence of empires, the cyclical rhythms of rise and fall, and the poignant spectre of lessons unlearned. As Britain forged its indomitable empire, drawing strength from the echoes of past grandeur and the somber cadence of ruins long forgotten, the ghosts of a bygone epoch whispered their parting wisdom to a nation destined for global preeminence. Did we learn from the Romans, then, as Britain rose from the ashes of desolation, to fashion an empire that stretched across the seas and continents? The shadow of antiquity, etched in stone and myth, beckoned a new dawn, heralded by the echoes of a lost era, a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the immutable passage of time. In the fullness of history's tapestry, Britain hearkened back to the lessons of old, crafting an empire that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of human civilization. And amidst the resplendent tapestry of empire, the legacy of Rome whispered in the winds of change, a silent tribute to the enduring spirit of a nation forged in the crucible of time, standing on the shoulders of giants and destined to leave an indelible imprint on the canvas of global power.